Welcome back to Will at Work. I am Kevin, and today we're looking at a fairly rare, sort of a hybrid game system. It's the Radofin Tele Sports IV. It's gone by a lot of other names depending on the country and where it was released. This one, I believe, was released in England. It is basically a Pong system, but it took cartridges. Very similar to the Telstar Arcade, where it would have the microprocessor on the cartridge itself, and the base unit would allow you to switch those out. Now, the thing that differs from this versus, like, say, an Atari 2600 that took ROM carts was that the 2600, had a central processor, and then these ROM carts would program the graphics right into whatever type of game you wanted. Well, what was going on in the 70s with the Pong type systems and the standalone systems was that there were microprocessors that were designed to play specific games, so they weren't actually programs, they were these processors, and you would build the console around the processor in order for it to display its display and the game that it had inside of it. And what the Radofin company here decided to do was, sell the games as cartridges, or the processors as a cartridge. So you would have the same base unit, and you would, plug in a different microchip, and you would get Pong, or maybe you would get racing, or you would get, in one case, there's a tank game, which we can talk about too. Let's take a look at it really quick here. Now, this box is pretty rough, but, given the age, it's nice to just have a box in general. You can see some of the games here, which all look like different versions of Pong or racing or shooting, etc. And there's nothing on the bottom. On the side, we've got this programmable color TV game. Easily connects to most televisions, color or black and white. Compatible with game console, 2 remote joystick controls, and 1 Superstar 10-game cartridge. Now, the thing that's kind of interesting is that they did release about 7, maybe 8 cartridges for this total, and one of them, the tank cartridge that I mentioned, actually used a different type of controller, and you would actually plug the controls into the cartridge itself, so you could play the game. The rest of the time, they use these analog controllers that this unit comes with. We'll open it up here and take a look at it. And, I think right at this crossroads, it was an interesting idea. Like the idea that you could, the cartridge would contain an upgraded processor or an upgraded chip. And, as these chips would get better and more, powerful, you would, buy a better cartridge and you would get a better experience. This never really took off, right? Like the ROM side of things became the dominant way of supporting these video game systems that we saw, the 2600 as the base, and the idea of releasing standalone hardware around a microprocessor didn't really go beyond this. But if you think about it, like if you think what might have occurred is that you might have owned like a base game system, and maybe year on year you would have a new cartridge with a bunch of games on it, and you would plug it in, and that would be like better graphics, better sound, better games basically. And then the next year, better graphics, better sound, better games. Of course this didn't happen, but that was kind of, I think the basic idea here. And but there was more money to be made for one base system with a bunch of ROM carts, because hardware on carts is expensive. So let's see what we've got here. We've got Kart 1003A Skill Cycle, has Stunt Driver, Dirt Rider, Time Trials, and Moto Jump. professional and amateur mode. Made in Hong Kong. This cartridge is the one that came with the 1001 Superstar. Space target, tennis, hockey, squash practice, target, grid ball, football, basketball, and basketball practice. So there's quite a few games on these carts, which is nice. We have a definitely an English power supply here, the faux ground piece of plastic. Now the reason they did that over there in the UK is because their outlets, if you're from America you might not know this, their outlets have covers over them, and if you didn't have this ground, trying to plug this into they would hit the covers on the outlet. The ground is out a little bit further than the positive negative, and it would open the doors so that the rest of this could slide in. The design was done that way so that the ground was always required and necessary. But here we have somebody that said, nah, not for us it isn't. We're going to use plastic. Never mind safety. We don't care. Radofin. This is a 9 volt at 150 milliamps because they weren't too worried about this thing blowing out or anything. Well, we can't use it here. I don't have a step-down transformer, but it doesn't matter. We can't get a picture from these things anyway. We can try, but it never goes well. Let's take this unit out, and then we'll look at a couple of the paperwork things. So it looks pretty good. We have here a analog controller. This is really late in the game, so to speak. You know, we have 4 degrees of movement, and we have a serve button, I would say. In some cases, probably a fire button. And this is the kind of thing we would see from like the Odyssey series late, before it, you know, transitioned over to Odyssey 2. That side's the same. We have a cartridge port here, on, off, and then we can set up some skill set, amateur, professional, A, B, and C. Probably depends on the game. You can also change some colors, which is interesting. 1, 2, 3, and reset. And then you have some additional options here, 1 through 10. So that's a lot more involved than a lot of the units that we've seen in the past as well. So one box we've got here, the Tele Sports IV, with the variety of buttons. I took the cartridges and I put them back into their respective boxes. I'll show you what those look like. You know, this is Skill Cycle. There's a price tag on it of $6.90, and it was $8.99. And I have no reason to doubt that that was probably the price that somebody bought this when these were still for sale back in the day. And then, of course, the Superstar cartridge that comes with it. You know, and inside, you know, you got the game, and there's a slip over here for the manual. Yeah, you know, but unfortunately, it's a PAL system, and while I could drive a 9-volt adapter into this, you know, it's there's a risk there, right? That it's not gonna not just not work, which is pretty much the reality of it, but there's always a chance that the polarity is going to be reversed, and I'll end up shorting it out and blowing out a transistor or a capacitor or something inside of it, because a lot of these things don't tend to handle the wrong polarity going into the unit. Anyway, so we're not going to try that. I mean, it's English. What are we going to do? It's funny because the it says DC 9-volt 800 milliwatt. You know what though? It looks like it takes batteries. Shit. You know, I wasn't expecting that since it takes cartridges. I mean, how many cartridge things do you see that take batteries? Well, we could try it, I guess. I mean, it's not going to probably work, but This one's a little weird because the instructions are basically saying any old channel will work. You know, if you switch it over to that channel, it'll go. So let me just look at the output here. Yeah, that should fit our switch box. We'll give it a shot. I'll put some batteries in it, and you know, being PAL, I'm not expecting it to go, but stranger things have happened. I mean, I'm sure it works. Well, I would hope so. It looks pretty clean. It's just that being PAL, we don't really have a good way to get an RF signal in. You know, channel 36 is generally what they use for PAL, though that can kind of vary. You know, and I'm not even sure if channel 36 in England is VHF or UHF. You know, in the United States, VHF was on the top of the dial. I don't know if it's the same there. But for science, we will try it, and we will see what we get. Okay, cartridge is fitted. I don't hear anything. So what I'll do is I'll switch it over to the video side, and we'll see if we get some video out of it. If this video ends abruptly, let's just say that I wasn't able to get video out. There's no point in us coming back because we already know what would be wrong with it. It's a PAL signal. It's not going to necessarily work. But if we switch over and I have something for you to show, I'll show it to you. Otherwise, the video is going to end here. Okay? Thanks for watching, though. Talk to you tomorrow. All right. Amazingly, I have a very terrible picture of this working. It's on channel 35, and you can see that the line down there is, you know, the screen is slanted down. That's likely due to the PAL signal. Part of the problem with PAL isn't just that it has more scan lines, which causes this vertical hold issue for us on NTSC televisions, but also their color configuration is different. And so if you're in NTSC, you know, your monitor, your TV, it doesn't understand the color commands being sent to it to colorize the picture. So it ends up being in black and white. But we can see here that it works. This is one of the games. This is Space Target. You would move one of these aimers around to try and hit the target rather than using a light gun. You would, you know, drive the little X around and hit the button. Tennis. Let's see if that works. If I just hit, yeah. That's just your standard pawn. 3 is hockey. I'm not sure if I have to hit reset to make that go or it just works. Let me hit reset. Reset and 3, or reset then 3. Let's try 4. 4 is squash. Yeah, we know what that looks like. 6 is target. That's what we looked at. 7 is grid ball. All right, and these all look like variations of many of the Pong games that we've played before, but these were all on a cartridge. 8 is football. 9 is basketball. And I can't quite see what 10 is, but it's probably some variant of basketball. Yeah, one player. All right, let's see what the other cartridge looks like, because this is Skill Cycle, so I'm thinking it probably looks a lot like Stunt Cycle. We'll take a look, though. The fact that we get any PAL system to show up with anything is always, even if it's, you know, not looking good on our capture board, at least we get some kind of signal out of it. Yeah, and this kind of, it's really bad, you know, video-wise. It's all flickery, but I can tell that it's totally like stun cycle. Let's try channel 36 here. $35. It's just too rough. $34. $33. Yeah, it's a no-go. But, you know, at the end of the day, we can tell that it's working, so we'll kind of just take that as a victory that we even got a PAL system to display. It's just a challenge. You know, I'm not saying this is an impossible thing to buy the right equipment to do PAL. I mean, people in England are able to do this all the time, right? But I would probably need a PAL VCR, at least one or two step-down converters or step-up converters, step-down converters, and I would probably need, you know, a capture board, you know, like a Hauppauge or something, at least the settings at the very least that would be to handle the PAL input, or an upscaler that deals with it. I'm not sure, but we're not going to go all that way just for some Pong systems. Basically works, and that's all we needed to do. So Radofin Tele Sports IV, a weird kind of hybrid cartridge Pong. We were right there, just, you know, right at the Atari point with ROM carts. Thanks for watching, though. Check you next time.